Madam Vice President, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor to present my fifth and final report on the situation of human rights in Somalia, covering developments between July 2024 and June 2025. The report provides an overview of human rights, political, security, and humanitarian developments during this period. Somalia continues to face immense challenges, yet the resilience and determination of its people remain evident in their pursuit of peace, justice, and stability. To assess progress against my benchmarks and guide this dialogue, I will highlight four interrelating dimensions: the political landscape, security, human rights, and humanitarian and climate challenges. Together, these factors define both the risks Somalia faces and the opportunities to strengthen human rights protection. Madam Vice President, Somalia's political transition remains fragile. Efforts to advance a one-person, one-vote system could mark real progress towards inclusive democracy, yet political consensus has proved elusive. Tensions between the federal government and member states, notably Puntland and Jubaland, have deepened, leading to armed clashes and eroded cooperation. Without inclusive dialogue, and such divisions risk fueling mistrust and diverting attention from urgent governance, security, and humanitarian priorities. Encouragingly, the peaceful presidential election on Somaliland in late 2024 demonstrated the potential of dialogue and participation in advancing democracy. Yet, Somalia's broader political landscape remains polarized, underscoring the urgent need for genuine national dialogue to consolidate peace and ensure respect for human rights. Despite earlier territorial gains by the Somali National Army and its international partners, Al-Shabaab has reasserted its presence, reclaiming areas in central and southern Somalia and launching deadly attacks, including in Mogadishu. To illustrate, an attack on Lido Beach in August 2024 reportedly killed nearly 100 people. In March 2025, a roadside explosive targeted the presidential convoy, and in May, a suicide bombing the Mamayo military base killed at least 10 recruits. These incidents underscore the group's enduring threat to civilians and state institutions alike, needing reconciliation. Vice President, the human rights situation remains grave. From September 2024 to March 2025, the United Nations documented 402 civilian casualties, including 179 deaths, among them 26 women and 21 children. Arbitrary arrests, detentions, and extrajudicial executions persist. Civic space is shrinking. Journalists and human rights defenders are harassed, attacked. 41 journalists were arrested or intimidated between March and May 2025 alone, while Al-Shabaab continues to target those critical of its ideology. These resulted in a climate of fear and leads to self-censorship, undermining democratic participation. Somalia must halt enforcement of and reform provisions in the Penal Code and the 2020 revised media law that contravenes international standards. The continued use of the death penalty, including against minors, is also deeply troubling. Executions, some without the right of appeal, were carried out in several states. I reiterate my call for a moratorium in line with Somalia's own commitment before this Council. Women and children remain particularly vulnerable. Sexual and gender-based violence persists at alarming levels, with 267 cases of sexual violence against children recorded in 2024 alone. Between September and December 2024, the UN verified 856 grave violations against children, including recruitment, abduction, and killing. Critical legislation, including Sexual Offences Bill, the Child Rights Bill, and the Anti-FGM Bill remain stalled in Parliament, leaving survivors without protection or redress. Minorities, marginalized groups, and persons with disabilities continue to face discrimination and exclusion, despite the passage of the Disability Bill in December 2024, which was a welcome step. Implementation, of course, is still outstanding. Madam Vice President, conflict, drought, and flooding continue to displace communities. Between September 2024 and March 2025, insecurity forced 640,000 people from their homes, over 80% of them women and children. More than 150,000 were forcibly evicted during the same period, while flash floods in April and May affected over 84,000 people. This year, nearly 6 million Somalis require humanitarian and protection assistance, yet funding remains critically insufficient and access is severely constrained. Against this backdrop, progress on my 7 benchmarks, including security, reconciliation, freedom of expression, rule of law, and the protection of vulnerable groups, including women and children, remain minimal. While I welcome steps such as the appointment of the commissioners to the National Human Rights Commission, the institution remains non-operational, and core pillars of accountability and inclusive governance remain unfulfilled. I also welcome the labor law that was passed. Somalia is at a critical turning point. Insecurity, political fragmentation, a persistent human rights violation threaten to undo fragile gains, while the phased withdrawal of international forces leaves civilians increasingly vulnerable. Madam Vice President, as I conclude my tenure as independent expert, I remain convinced that Somalia's fragility, marked by insecurity, political division, weak institutions, and ongoing human rights violation, requires sustained, well-resourced international engagement. Extending this mandate or establishing a medium to long-term strong oversight, independent and support mechanism with regular engagement with this Council will be vital to consolidating progress, preventing backsliding, and keeping civilian protection at the core of Somalia's transition. I also urge the Somali government to prioritize the rights and protection of its people through inclusive dialogue, reconciliation, accountability, stronger institutions, legal reform, a moratorium on the death penalty, and ratification of human rights instruments. Equally, I call on this Council and international partners to remain engaged, provide robust support, and ensure that ongoing UN and AU transitions do not erode hard-won gains. Madam President, in closing, I wish to express my deep gratitude to the government of Somalia, this Council, the Office of the High Commission, the United Nations generally, and the AU colleagues and civil society organizations for their steadfast support throughout my tenure. With continued partnership, I am confident Somalia can move forward to lasting peace, stronger governance, and the full realization of human rights. Finally, Madam Vice President, allow me to unconditionally denounce the United States government's sanctions on the Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territories. I express my full solidarity with Francesca Albanese. Sanctioning a Special Rapporteur appointed by this Council violates international law and is in direct attack on the integrity of the UN system as a whole. Including special procedures as a whole, I call on all states to act decisively to denounce these sanctions and to refuse to carry them out. I also call on the United States to immediately withdraw these illegal sanctions. I thank you for your attention.